You've heard it before. A win is a win is a win. Ugly victories or pretty ones, they all help get you towards the playoffs. We talk about the Packers' win over Washington and get ready for Bears Week. All next on your Packers Fan Podcast.
Welcome once again to the Packers Fan Podcast, the podcast for and by fans of the 13-time champion Green Bay Packers. I'm Scott Clark, and I don't know about you, but I'm not feeling great about the win this week. Sure, we earned it without the help of bad calls this time, but it still feels like we should have dominated just a little bit more. What do you think?
Could be. I love domination when the Packers take care of business, but at this point, we'll just have to hope for that this week. Wayne Henderson here, still with you after another Heart Attack Pack game on this 195th edition of your Packers Fan Podcast. Tonight's December 9th, 2019, and we've got a lot to talk about with you on this edition. Packers win yet again. I never get tired of saying that. We have positive yards on punt returns. Say what? And we've got the results from our weekly Twitter and Facebook poll question.
Also, the Packers get ready to play their last regular home game of the year, and of course, it's against the Bears. We're also going to listen to your feedback as well. As always, episode show notes can be found at PackersFanPodcast.com and in the details area of your podcast player. And speaking of those highlights, let's go ahead and start right there. You mentioned it already, Wayne, positive yards on punt returns. I feel like we've got more yards this game than we have all season, and I know that's not what won the game for us, but hallelujah. Definitely great to see.
That, coupled with the fact that the Redskins early on were punting from way deep at their end of the field, it all matched up to give us good field position. It was great to see that just with the help of this one player we brought in, we might be able to salvage the disaster of having a season average of negative yards on punt returns.
Yeah, and to be fair, this was the Redskins, but it felt really awesome to start at the 50-yard line multiple times with those drives, and I feel like that replacement should have been made weeks ago instead of just last week, but I'm glad it's there.
We'll take it, and we'll see what happens this week against the Bears, because them and their fans are riding high after beating the Lions and all that good stuff. Packers rookie head coach Matt LaFleur is officially now the first coach in Packers history to win 10 games in his first season. That's quite an accomplishment to think that not even Vince Lombardi did that.
Yeah, that's a really good call, and especially coming from last year, where the numbers were not good at all last year. So here's to hoping it will be 11 this week, because it's got to happen, right?
It has to happen.
Also, we have a run game. Aaron Jones just keeps proving that he is a top-tier running back. He was a lot of fun to watch, and I've said this before, but it's so cool seeing Green Bay having a legitimate running game. I feel like ever since I was a kid, we were always a passing team that ran once in a while just to keep the distraction up. We have a running game. My question is, are we utilizing him enough?
I wouldn't mind seeing us really hand him the ball even more, as well as mixing in Jamal Williams a bit more, because he was a little bit absent this week, but I know it's coaching, I suppose. But yes, Aaron Jones, if anybody didn't think that he belonged in the top 3 or 4 running backs in all of the NFL, they need to look again.
I agree.
And the passing game, we've been asking for a little more balance ever since that disaster in LA against the Chargers, and we're getting a bit more of it. Aaron Jones got some receptions. Jimmy Graham got a few great catches. Devontae Adams, of course, and Lazard getting a little bit more, and even Tanyan with that touchdown. That was great to see. I had to look, turn around. Let me see the back of the jersey. Who is that? Oh, it's Tanyan. Yeah.
It was really cool to see. Even Allison got one. Mercedes Lewis got one. He's spreading it out quite a bit more. Adams is definitely targeted more than anybody else, but it wasn't Adams heavy like it was in weeks past. So that's good to see. Somebody's listening to us, Wayne.
I believe so. And all of the other people saying, pass the ball around.
And they're doing it. I love that they're listening. Well, we can't have highlights without some lowlights. Yes, we did win the game, but are we really playing December football right now? I mean, the Redskins got a spark the previous 2 weeks, but it still felt like a game that we should have dominated. Do you think we're underestimating our opponents just a little bit?
I'm not sure if it's a case of underestimating the opponents. It might just be the way that we play right now. Maybe we just can't fire on all cylinders all the time, and we just find a way to win in the end. Mm-hmm. I like the fact that we are starting strong at the beginning, and then I don't like the fact we're letting it slip by, but I do like it better than playing from behind the whole game and coming from behind to win, I guess, if you have to choose one or the other. But domination, I would assume that's on everybody's minds as we head into these final 3 games of the regular season.
I get your point too. I mean, you want to come out the gate strong, so you're not playing catch up, and you're actually kind of not relaxing, in December, but not having to fight as hard as you would. But with that said, we still don't have the division locked up.
No,
at all. Now, even the Bears have a chance to win out at this point.
Oh,
which
stop
is,
it!
I mean,
I know
mathematically it's possible. Is all I'm saying. So we really are in control of our own destiny right now, and we've got to make it happen. And the Bears, I do not want to lose that game. I wanted to win this game more than I wanted to win the Niners game, man. Like, this is we have to win it. We need to. I cannot go to work the next day,
especially where you live.
Seriously, just cannot do it.
One thing that has to change at Lambeau Field this week is whatever is causing people to slip and fall on the field needs to be cleaned up, especially poor Jimmy Graham. I know there were other players slipping on the turf at Lambeau Field, but Jimmy Graham seems to be the one that everybody notices.
I don't know why. Nobody notices the great catches that he's making too. There's one in the first quarter that he was able to run around and get some extra yak, and all everybody talks about is how he's slipping. I mean, he's not the only one, guys.
Exactly.
So,
he's just the biggest one, so it's very noticeable.
There was also a beautiful sack by Blake Martinez that was overturned because of a quote-unquote illegal substitution. And I'm going to be direct with you here, Wayne. I don't understand this rule. Can you explain it? Because I know it wasn't for too many men on the field. How do you illegally substitute somebody?
I am not sure. It's not something that I thought would be worth my time to dig into too much because it doesn't happen very much. It is so unfortunate that it happened, though, because Blake Martinez just came out of nowhere and just ran right through everybody, and that sack was fantastic. And then to find out that it got called back because of whatever an illegal substitution is, we just need to make sure it doesn't happen this week.
I'm sure somebody will write in and let us know and say, what are these guys doing on a podcast? They don't know all the rules. But that's just one of those rules you don't see too often, and you just kind of take it for granted. So,
and we are the Packers Fan Podcast, by and for fans of your Packers Fan Podcast. We aren't the Rules Integration Committee.
Fair enough, man.
And, some people may call this win an ugly win, but AR12 doesn't really care. In fact, in the post-game press conference, he said, the way we're playing might be ugly to some folks. I wouldn't mind winning ugly all the way to the Super Bowl. He said it. He said it, Scott.
Yeah. Does this feel like his new, relax, RELAX, or what do you say, run the table that one year?
The run the table, yes.
This is the quote for this season, it looks like.
If it gets us to the Super Bowl, he can have any dang quote he wants.
Let's do it.
And regarding that quote from Aaron Rodgers, Dictus commented on Facebook saying, it's true, but to me, it's not about ugly. It's about leaving so much on the field. It's unnecessary. Shooting yourself in the foot over and over. I mean, okay, 10-3, I love it, but take the Washington game. What's frustrating to me is it seems we can be up 1 or 2 scores or even more at halftime, and they just keep pounding the ball and taking some of the easier throws. Just demolish them that way. Doesn't have to be a deep ball dagger. Sure, I love to see those throws, but come on. Set those up with a great run game and some screens. But that said, 10-3, love it. Go, Pack, go.
Especially because running the ball is going to run that clock down that much more. If you're up by 2 scores, your job now is to expire and get those down to zeros as quickly as possible. Why are we throwing the ball quite so much? Run the ball. We've got the game now. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, even in the, midway through the second quarter, it's never too early to start running the clock out if you're up by 2 or more scores. Let's see if they listen and take care of that this week. In the meantime, let's see what the listeners had to say that gave us a call at 920-3PACK-GO. Again, that number, because you're going to want to call us with your thoughts after the Bears game for sure. It's area code 920-3PACK-GO. Pack, go.
Go, Pack, go! Go, Pack, go! 10-3 feels good to me. Jared from Ohio. Yeah, a win is a win. I don't think it should have been that close, especially how dominant we looked in the first quarter. Overall, I think it's just a little bit more of the same. Definitely special teams improved quite a bit. I shouldn't say quite a bit, but they improved nonetheless. I think there was like two punt returns in a row where the announcers were like, oh, hey, those are some positive yards. But all in all, I think the offense really just needs to still figure it out. A little bit concerning just because of how deep we are in the season, especially looking at, that Niners and Saints game that was going on while the Pack was playing. I'm worried about, still trying to figure out the offensive sputtering that has kind of been somewhat of a constant, minus a couple of games this season, going up against, teams like the Saints and, the 49ers again. Actually, no, not again. That was a 2-week bye. Don't know what I'm talking about there. Anyways, still, a win is a win. Really happy to see, despite some of the struggles, I think this is way more than we could have asked for with a brand new head coach. Beautiful. I love that man. I wouldn't mind marrying him. But anyways, go Pack, go. Green and gold till dead and cold. Let's have at it.
All right, Jared, thank you so much for the voicemail. I'll have to talk to LaFleur and see if he's available. I assume he's married, but I don't know. I'll put in a good word for you if I get a chance to talk to him ever. I love what Jared said about how we dominated in the first quarter. And that makes me feel a little bit better about the game because I walked away from this feeling pretty bummed out and worried about our chances in the rest of the season as well as into the playoffs if we make it. And his comment makes me realize we have the ability to dominate. If we had kept playing for the entire game like we did in that first quarter, we would have dominated. So I think that's something that we need to focus on in the coming games is the Packers have the ability. They just have to keep that momentum going. And if they're going to do it, they're going to need to do it at home because it's their last opportunity.
Until the playoffs, anyway.
Right.
And Jared pointing out the special teams are improved to an extent, and love the way he opened up with 10-3. Feels good to me.
Yeah, that was pretty great.
And Jared, we'll see how it goes. You have to come up with another new one next time after we get another victory. And, sometimes things just aren't as beautiful as they should be as far as domination. Like, even look at last year's Super Bowl. That was boring, and it was pretty ugly. It was Patriots 13, Rams 3, something like that. And it may have been ugly, but guess what? At the end, they still handed that Lombardi trophy to the Patriots. So you do what you got to do.
Hey, guys, this is Mark from New Lisbon. Good win for the Packers. They're 10-3. You might call it an ugly win, but the negativity on Facebook is just surprising because you just want to say, hey, did we win? I'm pretty sure we won. So I swear some Packer fans will complain when they win the Super Bowl that they didn't cover the spread. It's like, come on. But I thought our offense did enough to win, but sometimes I still think our offense this year looks like the same offense under McCarthy, and just by the fact that there's never receivers open. It seems like Rodgers really has to thread the needle to complete passes. So that could go back to just the fact that we need a number 2 receiver. I like our tight ends now that Sternberger's back. And you got to give credit to the Redskins. They played hard. I mean, I think the Redskins still thought that they could win, that crappy NFC East division with a win, but that's probably not going to happen now. I like LaFleur's offense in the sense that he realizes how important and integral Aaron Jones is. I mean, Jones is he's a 5th-round pick, and he's one of the top 3 backs in the league. He had almost 200 yards total offense today. So credit and kudos to LaFleur for making sure they featured him and not allowing Washington to take him away like San Francisco did. So I think most of the Packer fans with 5 games left thought we would go 4-1. We have 3 left now, Vikings, Bears, and the Lions. And if we win 2 out of those 3, we're 12-4. And tell me, a Packer fan, that back in August with a new coach wouldn't have taken 12-4. I mean, it's very positive. We hopefully will have a first-round bye in a home game. So it's all good, a good win for the Packers. I love the podcast. You guys do a great job, Wayne and Scott. Mark from New Lisbon, I'm out. We'll talk to you next week.
Awesome. We can't wait to hear from you next week. Thank you so very much, Mark, for not only your voicemail, but also your very kind words. And yes, right after the game, the negativity you mentioned online was off the charts. I mean, the Packers are 10-3, and you're right. Even if we win the Super Bowl, somebody's going to be complaining about us not making the spread or whatever.
Well, to be fair, I don't consider my thoughts necessarily to be negative.
Oh, not yours.
No, I know. But I've been pretty negative this podcast so far as well. And I don't mean to be negative. I just consider myself a little bit more of a realist in terms of, I look at the potential of what we could be doing as opposed to what we actually are doing. So I see a bright future with the Packers. I'm just a little apprehensive, and I'm not. I want to feel good going into these final games. I want to feel better than I do anyway.
That's fair enough. Mark brought up a great point about possibly needing a real number 2 receiver and opening up the can of worms in the offseason should the Packers go after Odell Beckham Jr.
Whew.
How would he fit in? He's definitely a lot better and would be less of a risk than Antonio Brown, who's a complete cancer.
Right, but I also feel like Beckham hasn't been producing as much as he did last season or the season before. I mean, I guess it depends on what we get for him. But, I mean, in response to Mark saying we need a real number 2 receiver, I would rather have a slew of number 3 receivers instead of a single number 2 receiver.
Okay.
I mean, if I had a choice, would I love to see Odell Beckham Jr. in there? Sure. I gotta be honest. I don't want to. I hope they don't touch Antonio Brown. I think that could make for some toxic environments, and we've got such good camaraderie going with this team right now. I worry that could hurt more than it would help.
Go, Pat, go! Go, Pat, go! Hey, guys, Andre in L.A. Another good, solid win yesterday. I think I'm convinced after yesterday's win that I think that's our style to really win games in the playoffs. Somewhat of a grind it out. When we get in the red zone, Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones finish it off. Defense is opportunistic. They did a pretty solid job of the run. Yeah, the other team had a few holes at certain points that they were able to break, but it's still football. They're going to move the ball at some point. But I really liked what I saw. I do, seems like something I don't want to be concerned about, but I'll keep an eye on. Aaron Rodgers has fumbled a bit more this year. I don't know if he's having trouble with the grip or not. I know he has big hands, a little bit of extra info. But overall, great game. I like that they're back to not just looking for Devontae Adams, but finding the open receiver. Matt LaFleur did a good job of keeping a lot of people open, incorporating the run a lot more today, even though it probably, Aaron Jones didn't have crazy numbers. But it felt like the offense was back in sync, which I liked. The defense seemed to be more focused. Martinez had a really good game. The Smith brothers. Overall, very, very solid win. I know it was just Washington, but we got to remember when we play the bad teams, we still got to beat the bad teams. When we play the good teams, we'll beat them. We'll see what happens with the other teams. But I'm really looking forward to the playoffs. I really think we can, make some noise, hopefully avoid the Niners. Other than that, great win, great weekend. Can't wait to hear your thoughts. Andre in L.A., green and gold, some dead and cold. Go, Pack, go. Love you guys.
Wow, Andre, I don't know how you top your Go Pack Go every week, but you definitely did it this week. That was fantastic. You mentioned how we grinded out in the red zone, and I assume you're talking about offense, but I think it should be noted, too, that at least at the beginning of this season, primarily, we were also grinding it out in the red zone on defense, because there's been multiple times where, oh, great, that the opponent's going to score here, they're going to be up by 6, and we were able to hold them to a field goal. I think that should be something that needs to be focused on going into the Bears game as well, because our run defense has been a little bit rough. So you mentioned opportunistic and focused. I I agree and disagree because, like I said, our run defense has just been brutal these past couple games. But and as far as Aaron Rodgers, I only remember, I'm thinking of one fumble that he had where it was stripped. I mean, there's only so much even AR-12 himself can do if the line doesn't stop the defense and they wrap him up. I mean, what else can he do except maybe just fall on the ball and keep it from being overturned? But I don't know. How much of that do you think is really his fault?
I don't know. I really don't know. There's so many circumstances that go into those fumbles that he's had that it could just be a side effect of the offensive line letting people in at just the wrong time. But I do want to comment, Andre, regarding the Smith brothers. Aren't those guys fun to watch? They bring just a really fun angle to the defense.
They really do. I feel like we lost Clay Matthews, but we got two Smith brothers in replacement. And as much as I hate to see Matthews gone, it's this was a good substitution. I know they're not the same, exact same position, but
it's just good to have some fun on defense because there are some good defenses out there that are just either boring or just not fun.
Yeah. And you gotta love it. It harkens back to the days of like Reggie White or Gilbert Brown.
Yes.
And the Gravedigger. That kind of stuff is just fun to see. And you got two guys with the same last name. It's just there's always something cool and quirky going on in our defense, and I love it.
Awesome. Thanks again, Andre, for your calls. I don't know how you get such great Go Pack Goes going at such an early hour when you send in those voicemails, but keep up the great work.
Go Pack Go! This is Megan. I'm with my brother-in-law, Pete, who is the one that originally ever got me into football many moons ago. Say hi.
Hello, everyone.
We're walking down Lombardi Avenue-ish in Green Bay, and we had an awesome time at the game. Just reminiscing about how lucky we are to be fans of the greatest team on earth, and how fun it is to see Aaron have a fun time. To see him laughing and, loosening up a little bit. That's what this is about. It's about, enjoying the sport and playing as a team, and it's just awesome. And also, this is great. Shout out to J.K. Scott. We were standing outside the atrium after the game, watching the players leave, and this little boy was, super fan of J.K. Scott and Mason, actually, so he must be a kicker in his future. And J.K., got out of his car, introduced himself to a little boy, signed the jersey. It was just the cutest thing, and, he just seems like the most humble guy ever. Anyways, here's what Pete has to say about the game.
Yeah, I'll be short and sweet. Echo the sentiments that Megan mentioned. The Packers roll at home. Take care of business. Big win at home. Defense showed up. Mike Pettin and his boys ratcheted it down. On to the next one.
Go Pack Go! Thanks for the podcast, guys. Green and gold till we're dead and cold. Until next week. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you, Megan. And brother-in-law Pete, our first voicemailer to call in with their own co-host. I love it, and so good to hear from you. And Pete, thanks for getting Megan into football, and thanks for your kind words about the podcast. Calling in while walking down Lombardi Avenue, Scott.
That was pretty cool. And I love the story about J.K. Scott coming out and signing a little kid's jersey. You don't see too many kids get excited about kickers, and that just kind of warms my heart a little bit.
Yes, well, J.K. Scott, he's more than just a kicker. He's been saving our bacon. There's that phrase again that you think I made up, but it's so great to have him on the team. Anyway, did we get some emails this week as well, Scott?
We did. Our first one comes from, Caleb, Kathy, and Roy Fisher from Green Bay, Wisconsin. They said, hey, Wayne and Scott, Lazard had a great game, as did Aaron Jones. We also think that the Smith brothers did such a fine job rushing the quarterback, but we really have to work on run defense. Aaron Rodgers did well when he ran the ball. We loved watching the Packers back at Lambeau, and we are happy that the Packers won. And go, Pack, go, and bleed green and gold till dead and cold.
Excellent. Yes, indeed. And yes, please work on the run defense. I don't know how much better they can get in the short amount of time left this season, but do what you can, Packers. Do what you can. Also, an email from Steven checking in from the area of Chicago, which is the home of the Bears, which still, Wondering when was the last time the Packers have won 11 games in a season. And let me tell you, Stephen, it was way back, 5 years ago, 2014, when the Packers went 12-4, and we're going to best that record this year. Stephen continues, if the Packers could only play one division rival twice in a season, who would that division rival be in your opinion and why? And I'll go first. I would say the Bears, just because they are the classic Packers rival. So if we don't get to play the Lions or Vikings twice in a year, I'm fine with that, because at least the Bears play outside. So twice in a year for the Bears. How about you, Scott?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, this seems like the easy answer. I know it's a safe answer, but especially this year, if we only had to play Minnesota once, I would be perfectly fine with that because that's our biggest threat right now, and I'm not looking forward to that game, especially on a Monday night. And so if I couldn't do the Lions and Vikings, yeah, definitely the Bears. I mean, just I got so many friends here, they're Bears fans, and the rivalry is fun with the right group of people.
Awesome. Steven rolls on saying, I can't believe how fast this season has come and gone. And that's one way to see it, because it seems like we just got started and now we're getting ready to wrap it up. But this year, I think we're getting bonus games. Steven finishes by saying, okay, I'm going to check out for now. And as always, I can't wait to hear the podcast on your thoughts on the game and the keys to victory over the Chicago Bears, who, they still, So thank you, Steven. And get your voicemails in, people, after the Bears game. Call us by 11 p.m. Central to be included in next week's podcast. Won't be complete without your thoughts, so call us at 920-3PACK-GO. 920-3PACK-GO every Sunday night, except for the week that we play on Monday, but we'll get there. Our weekly Twitter poll. Wanted to get the pulse of the fans, Scott. Which playoff seed will our Packers be this year? And if you had to pick one before we see what the listeners voted on, what do you think? Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or by some horrific accident not make the playoffs?
No, I'm going to go number 2. I think that the number 1 seed is a real long stretch, especially looking at the Niners' upcoming schedule. I just don't think we can catch them. I don't think they're gonna lose enough games. But number 3, I think, is too low. I think we can solidly do that. We've got the edge over the Saints now a little bit, and I think we'll hang on to that throughout the remainder of the season, especially if we can kick off this week with a win.
Awesome.
How about you?
I think the number 2 as well. We just need to keep taking care of business, and even if things don't go our way in Minnesota, the number 2 seed should still be ours. 38% of the voters did say the number 2 seed. 45%, though, said we will end up being the number 3 seed. Mm-hmm. And 17% said the number 4 seed. So we're hoping for the best, because you know what? It is Bears week. Your 10-3 Green Bay Packers host the 7-6 Bears Sunday, high noon, Central Time at Lambeau Field. And this will be meeting number 200 between the Bears and Packers. Wow. Monumental. The Packers lead the all-time series 98-95, and 6 ties over those 100 years or so of playing football. And what's interesting is, although the Packers-Bears rivalry is the oldest rivalry in the NFL, it's not the league's longest continuous rivalry because of that 1982 strike-shortened season that didn't get around to the part of the season when there would be Bears-Packers games.
Oh, interesting. So what is the longest continuous rivalry then?
Doesn't matter. It doesn't involve the Packers. I mean, look it up, people. I'm sure it's easy to find. According to Wikipedia, the Bears-Packers rivalry can be credited for the first ever ejection of players fighting during an NFL game. Of course, Packers-Bears. November 23rd, 1924. And I don't know if the fighting had anything to do with the final score being Bears 3, Packers 0, but...
Wow, I don't know if I've ever seen a game that low. You can only get one point lower for a final game, but that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and I'm not even positive if they had safeties back in the day.
Yeah.
And who could forget November 6th, 2014, when the Packers beat the Bears 55-14, which is the most lopsided win for the Packers over the Bears since 1962. That game just was beautiful.
That's what you like to see.
And this just in, Scott. Apparently, the Bears still, it looks like it's going to be a brisk 23 degrees on Sunday. It's going to be overcast. That's -5 degrees Celsius. So bundle up anybody that's heading to the game this weekend. It's going to be chilly.
And speaking of, I am going to be at this game, Mr. Henderson.
What?
Yes, I will be at the Chicago Bears Green Bay Packers game this coming Sunday, me and my wife, as well as a couple of friends. And I found out this week that one of the parents of a couple students at my school is also going. So we're going to do some tailgating together as well. With that said, if any of our listeners are out there going to be at the game, please be sure to hit me up on Facebook. Would love to meet you guys in person, take some photos, maybe some videos that we can rub it into Wayne that he's wasn't willing to fly out here and see y'all, but I was.
It's such a long flight for you to get up there.
Yeah, well, it's a 3.5 hour drive, man.
That's a daily commute here in SoCal for a lot of people.
Yeah, but we're making it after a Christmas party. We're going to a Christmas party on Saturday night and leaving from there to go up to, we're staying in Appleton.
Okay, I'll give you that. Appleton is awesome.
Yes.
Make sure if you do get a chance, I know things get real crazy on game day, but maybe during the tailgate before you go in the stadium, if you could do a live Facebook video in the group, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
And otherwise, post pictures so we can see where you're seated and all that good stuff. And you've mentioned in past episodes, you know how to dress warm for the game. So we may or may not even see your face. You'll be covered up.
Oh, yeah. I got some pictures from a game I went to a couple years ago, and I had so many layers on, I was embarrassed to post the picture because I looked severely overweight. It was I had rolls going on. It was pretty bad. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our keys to an 11th Packers victory. Step number 1, we cannot underestimate the Bears. I know this is a repeat of last week for sure, but it bears repeating. Don't underestimate the potential of this Chicago. They have won 3 in a row. They are hungry for the division title or at least a wild card. Both are technically possible at this point, and they know it. If you remember our first meeting, we barely won that game, and I firmly believe that we are the better team, but it all comes down to who wants it more. We also can't forget that the Bears will have had an extra 3 days of rest more than the Pack, but thankfully this one will be on our own turf, and the fans will be in full force, yours truly included. Secondly, we need to focus on the secondary. The Bears have won 4 of their last 5 games on the arm of Mitch Trubisky, who has completed 77% of his passes over the last 3 games. The Pack should expect a heavy game through the air, which means the corners, safeties, and other defenders need to be on their toes. The Bears won't go down without a fight, and we have to keep that coverage tight, particularly with the refs very adverse to throwing yellow laundry for pass interference calls on us. Lastly, tighten up the run defense. It should come as no surprise that 2 of the keys to this victory lie with the defense, especially since our run defense has been faltering considerably. The Packers are in charge of their own destiny at this point, which means this game is a must-win if we want a shot at the number 1 seed. And that's going to boil down to stopping the run just as much as it comes down to stopping the passing game. We need to bring back the defense we saw from the first few weeks of the season, and we actually could win this rivalry game.
That sounds fantastic. And if you have to, Scott, put the entire team on your back and carry them to victory, whatever it takes.
Yeah, dude, I imagine I'm going to be going to work on Monday with no voice because my wife and I go all out. I'm talking wigs and face paint and defense signs and the whole 9 yards.
Love it. Can't wait to hear about it next week after the victory. So how are we doing on our crazy game predictions and trying to guess these scores?
Well, here's what happened last week. I predicted Packers 27, Redskins 17. You predicted Packers 30, Redskins 19. We both picked correctly, so it comes down to score. So I did the math. Since the Packers won 20-15, the difference in points, I had a total difference of 9 points between the two teams. You had a total difference of 14 points, which means I take the victory this week and puts me up by 1 game, 5-4. So I will take it.
So even though I had a higher point differential, this is more like golf where you want the lower point difference.
Yes, you want to have as close to 0 as possible.
Just trying to talk you out of it.
Okay, yeah, so you're not going to do it, man. You can't take that W away from me.
Not this time. It's been a number of weeks since we've had anything other than a tie. for various reasons. So
yeah, I've been goofy and not picking anybody with the Packers. I've been pulling a Wayne Henderson.
There you go. Scott's 5, Wayne 4. Well, how do you see this week's game going down? Are you going to pick a Packers victory again?
Man, I struggled with this pick. I went back and forth. I read some stuff. Man, I think that this game is going to be a lot tougher than we expect it to be. Although we're in the cold, we're in our element. We want it. Rodgers is getting the fans pumped up. So I think the Packers are going to win, but it's going to be a close victory, 23-20.
I want another game where it's not close, but I do see you have the Packers having more points than the Bears, so we'll take that 23-20. I think our defense is going to come alive at the opportunity of knocking Mitch Trubisky down quite often in this game. I see a 10-point margin of victory. Packers 24, Bears will be lucky to get 14.
There you go. And I got to admit, part of my reason for sticking with the Packers is in terms of our little rivalry competition here. I don't have to worry about. I've got one up on you, so I got the lead a little bit, so I don't have to be quite as risky, take these risky calls. So
okay,
there you have it. Well, I mentioned it briefly in my in my keys to victory, but let's take a look at the Green Bay Packers playoff clinching scenarios. And this is going to sound a little basketball. I don't know if you've seen that movie. Have you seen Basketball, Wayne, where they're going through all the playoff scenarios in that one scene?
I think it was on in the background, and my son was watching it. Yeah,
it's a little nutty, but here's how the Packers can still earn the number 1 seed, and you gotta pay attention and have your dry erase boards handy. But the Saints lost this weekend, and after that happened, in order to lock up the number 1 seed, the Packers need to win the rest of their games and watch the 49ers and Seahawks each lose 2 more before the end of the season, which is made harder with Seattle hosting San Francisco in Week 17. The Saints still have a chance of finishing at the top seed if they win out, but the Packers winning out would neutralize that as they hold a conference record tiebreaker over the Saints. So we got that going for us. Thanks to that advantage, the Packers will be guaranteed the number 2 seed if they win their final 3 games. They would also hold a divisional winner tiebreaker over whichever NFC West team ends up finishing second this season. So that sounds a little nutty, but basically, Packers need to win all 3 games, and we're good.
There you go. And after that, even if we falter once, there's still things in play, but let's make it easy and just win them. Let's make it easy and win them all. And regarding the NFC North specifically, the Packers currently own both a 1-game lead on the Vikings and 2 levels of tiebreakers in the NFC North race, which means that the Packers only have to win 2 of their remaining 3 regular games to win the division, and one of them does not need to include their December 23rd game at Minnesota.
Nice. I like it.
But it would still be great to beat up on the Purple Ones in their own stadium. And we've also got some listener thoughts and theories from the Packers Fan Podcast Facebook community. Go ahead and join that group at packerscommunity.com. Just have to answer 3 easy questions so we know you're not some sort of bear in disguise, and we'll let you in the group.
All right, our first one comes from Jared Machini-Kerr, who posted about AR12 doing a Reddit AMA, which I had to explain to Wayne that AMA stands for Ask Me Anything.
Oh, come on.
You thought it was the American Music Awards or something like that. This was happening at the same time that we are recording this podcast episode, so hopefully the details of it will be available after the fact, and we will link it to the show notes so you can check that out yourself.
And Lofia commented, terrible play calls, especially when they were in scoring range the other day. Could have ran the ball, which they were doing good at all game, but decided to pass, and the ball got stripped. Mm-hmm. But they got the W, and that's all that matters.
That is true. And where is the quick slant, man? I feel like the quick slant has not been a thing this season like it has in years past.
They're saving it for Sunday.
There we go. I take it. Also, Matt wrote and said, the Packers had another, quote, ugly win yesterday and are in a 3-way tie for the second best record in the NFL. Not too ugly if you ask me. Speaking of ugly, how about Seattle's offense last night? Let's not abandon ship yet. If we keep finding ways to win, that means we're still winning. Very well said, Matt, and appreciate that. If you would like to join the Packers Fan Podcast Facebook community and be a part of the conversation, at packerscommunity.com, and you can start your own as well. Lots of great conversations and posts, including our weekly post to discuss the game as it happens, which is a lot of fun on game day.
And Alexa helped us find out who really owns the Dallas Cowboys. So if you get a chance and you have an Echo or something like that, ask the lady in the tube who owns the Dallas Cowboys.
It's pretty great. Also, there's more epic Stephen A. Smith rants supporting AR-12.
And Jim Rome on CBS basically came right out and said the NFC East is garbage.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
Now, there's that and more, all at packerscommunity.com.
Got some other just general NFL chatter to talk about. I want to talk about that Saints-Niners game. Holy cow, that almost made me wish I could have watched that game instead of ours.
Oh, stop.
Man, I was watching the score and the highlights. Thankfully, we got to see the final minutes of that game after the Packers won, but wasn't that supposed to be a defensive struggle? There sure were a lot of points.
You just never know what's going to happen. And how about more possible Patriots shenanigans? Now, the Patriots did lose yesterday to the Chiefs, thank goodness. But the Kansas City Chiefs almost didn't get to play that game because a large percentage of the Chiefs' game equipment mysteriously ended up in New Jersey instead of in Foxborough. The situation nearly created a potential forfeit, according to ESPN, but everything did show up to the locker room just in time so the Chiefs could win that game. But how does a professional football team temporarily lose over half of their team's equipment?
I don't even know what to say to that. That's kind of crazy. I will say, though, if you read about that game at all, the Patriots, they were victim of some horrible calls that game. Not sure if it would have won them the game.
No.
But there was one, I actually saw a screenshot. David Newman from my Facebook or my Discord group over at the Gaming Outsider posted a picture that this player was called out of bounds, and it was a good 4 inches that he was in bounds. And unfortunately, Belichick didn't have any challenges left and was not able to rule it. So they had some real bad calls.
Karma.
I'm just saying, man. I want a fair game. I want it fair for everybody.
Fine. The NFC North. Here's what we got right now. The Packers are 10-3, and like we talked about earlier, we play the Bears this week. The Vikings are 9-4, who play the Chargers, and hopefully the Chargers will bring some of what they took to Jacksonville this past week and beat up on Minnesota for us. The Bears.
Are they playing in Minnesota or in Los Angeles?
I don't know.
I'll have to look into that because, man, I hope that's an away game. I would love to see the Vikings lose that game.
Yeah, it would be fantastic. And the Bears, well, they're 7-6. They play us. And the Detroit Lions are currently 3-9-1. They play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who somehow won this past week. And looks like it's Minnesota Vikings at Los Angeles Chargers. And maybe the Vikings will give in to the same impulses that whatever happened to the Packers when they came out to play the Chargers. So there's a lot of hope there. Go Chargers! Where's my lightning bolt?
You put one on, I'm going to disown you, man.
No. You don't have to worry about that. That was one of their slogans back in the day in San Diego. Where's my lightning bolt? Show me your lightning bolt. I'm like, what the? Go Pack Go is just so much better. Anyway, when I'm not talking about the Packers, I am talking about Stephen King's Castle Rock series, which is on Hulu. And it comes to an end this Wednesday night, at least season 2 does. And be sure to tune in to my Castle Rock Zone podcast at castlerockzone.com because rumor is there's going to be some big reveals in the season finale. Lots of spooky goodness to talk about. What else are you talking about besides your 13-time NFL champion Green Bay Packers?
Well, I just got to mention real quick, Wayne, I think I told you over text, but I started my first Stephen King novel this weekend. It's audiobooks because I like to listen to audiobooks while I'm doing chores around the house and whatnot. I'm 11 hours into Stephen King's It, and I am loving this book. It is really good. Only 35 more hours to go to finish that bad boy. But Outside of the Green Bay Packers, I also love to talk about video games. And if you love to play them as much as I do, please be sure to check out my other podcast, The Gaming Outsider, which can be heard at the same place you listen to this one. And shortly after this episode airs, you can hear me and my co-hosts, Zach and Chris. We're going to be sharing our top 5 games over the past decade. We're wrapping up these last few weeks before the end of the year, which is also the end of the decade. Also, I played a digital pinball table called Demon's Tilt that I've been thinking about Wayne all week while I was playing it because I know he loves pinball.
Oh, yeah.
If any of that sounds interesting, our website is thegamingoutsider.com. Please check it out.
We've got to send out a huge thank you and go Pack Go to listener Bryant for his continued support of the show at the $24 Willie Wood pledge level. Thank you, Bryant. That is fantastic. Also, thank you and go Pack Go to Jared Mancini-Kerr for his $12 support of the show. And also at the $12 a month level, our friends in the Texas-only Green Bay Packers Fanatics Facebook group, Go Pack Go, and thank you to you as well.
Also, got to give a shout out to our $4 monthly Patreon support that comes from Jeff Summerfield and Lawrence Harvey, and then our Curly Lambeau level, which is the $1 level podcast support. Thanks to Joe Christensen, Matt Haig, Hank Davis from the TPE Network of Podcasts, and Aaron Peterson from the Hollywood Outsider. If you would like to help us out as well, please be sure to check out how you can financially support the podcast at a level to match your budget, and maybe even get some cool Packers Fan Podcast logo merch. Details are at patreon.com/Packers Fan Podcast. Thanks, and go Pack Go. Also, we are the Unofficial Packers Fan Podcast, not yet affiliated with the NFL or the Green Bay Packers, but we would love to be. Just saying. If you are interested, please contact us at media@PackersFanPodcast.com.
And please follow us on Twitter at PackersFanPod. Follow Scott on Twitter at GoCastScott. Follow me on Twitter. I'm at Wayne Henderson. And again, join our Packers Fan Podcast Facebook community at PackersCommunity.com.
Also, as another reminder, be sure to get your feedback in by Sunday night at 11 p.m. Central. You can do so by heading to PackersFanPodcast.com and click the Contact Us button for details. Thanks again for joining us on the Packers Fan Podcast.
And be sure to subscribe in the podcast player of your choice so you don't miss an episode. It's now time for the Texas-only Green Bay Packers Fanatics group to get us ready to face the Bears.
This is Dawn down here in Texas, a.k.a. Granny Cheese.
Hi, I'm James.
Hi, I'm Kim.
Hi, I'm Melissa.
Hi, I'm Susan.
Hi, I'm Carrie.
Hi, I'm Lisa Montgomery, and we want to say,
Go Pack Go!